kind of falls within our economic crime unit on consumer fraud matters. So it's the financial section or department of our office. So, and just in a nutshell, and I'm going to show you at the end how you can reach out if you do think you're the victim of a crime as it relates to consumer fraud protection. I'm going to give you a hotline number and email that you can reach out, and hopefully, that won't be the case. But I'm also happy for you to reach out if you do have some questions where you maybe have not really experienced fraud or a crime, but maybe you're kind of suspicious on something that is coming to you via phone or email or text, and you just want to talk about it. Because a big part of what I do is to educate, and there's a lot of outreach. But I also take cases that apply to us and expand it with our economic crime unit. So anyway, so today what I'm going to talk about is it's consumer fraud, it's scams. There's going to be a big human behavioral component to this because it's so relevant, and you'll see why as I go through this. But it is going to really kind of cover a lot of what's going on here with COVID and the vaccinations and all that. So, and I'm sure probably maybe all of us, at least a few of us in this presentation, are experiencing something related to COVID or some type of scam. So let's see. So here's a fact, and it's very true, and this is why I'm going to kind of cover a big part about behavior. Is approximately 95% of everything that you're experiencing out there in this space of these cyber crimes really are preventable, and they're stemming from human error. And I say that human error on my part, on your part, and then also behavioral weaknesses. There's the behavior on the other end where the criminal is, and you may be more familiar with that, and if not, I'm going to cover some aspects of that through the presentation as well. But so much of this, even if it's stemming from a data breach, when your information is out there, can be prevented on your end. So as we go through all this, I do want you to feel empowered, right, on things that you can do to protect yourself and those that are close to you, because I'm hoping that you'll share this information as well with some of your peers. So there's a lot that we can do, have a lot of control. So here, and it's just very true, online security is so much more than the passwords that things that you go through to make it secure and changing passwords on a regular basis. It's so much more than just the staying current with the antivirus software and various firewalls for your phone, for your laptop, for your tablet, or whatever. As I said, 95% stems from human error. So a lot of these are, by doing this, you can greatly minimize your exposure to these criminals. And a lot, just so you know, when I say criminals, so much of what is on that other side, that dark side, it is organized crime. Now, there are certainly cases where it's one individual or two individuals creating, let me admit somebody, creating the scenario, but often it's organized groups. A lot of it is overseas, abroad, but there's a lot here too. But this is organized crime. These are professionals that do this over and over and over, and they're very, very good. So everything really starts with your understanding and awareness of this human side, the emotional side, the behavioral properties of what's taking place. So I hear this all the time. Like I said, for our office, I get these calls, I get these emails. People think they're the victim of a crime. And I hear all the time, I knew better than to do what I just did. And I'll sit there and I'll talk to them like, okay, well, you probably did. You probably did know better. So tell me exactly what happened when that phone call came in, when that text was sent to your phone. Well, what it all is, a very generic but very direct term of what's taking place here from the criminals, called social engineering. And here's a word cloud. The key aspect here is social engineering. And there's so much involved with that. And it is the calls. It is breaking through these firewalls. It's just antivirus things. It's hacking. It's phishing. But it's social engineering. And really what that is, it's a series of psychological manipulative techniques that exploit human errors and judgments in order to direct people into doing something. So they're creating a situation where they benefit, often from a financial standpoint, and if not that, then gaining access to more information where a type of crime can happen down the road. So, they trick you into revealing your personal information, financial. This can be something known as, you've probably heard the term phishing, and it's PHISHING. The phishing itself is almost truly like these groups are throwing a big net out to a very broad part of the population to see who they can catch, who they can trick. There's also something that we call spear phishing, and this is where they're actually targeting you or a smaller subset. And so there's more premeditated activities that they're doing to really fully understand you and information that they can extract from you. And sometimes this can take weeks. They'll watch you for weeks, months, even a year. It depends on really what they're looking to get. But synthetic ID theft is very real. And it could be like your social security number, maybe one or two other bits about you, but then everything else is unrelated to you, but it creates this new synthetic ID identification that then can be used to open up bank accounts or some kind of fraudulent activity. So once again, it's you in the equation that matters most. You need to understand really what makes you tick in certain moments. And it's that emotional side of you, that behavioral side, because they really try to get you in this space. Because often when you're in this space, whether you're someone that's younger, a young adult or a teen, someone over 65, someone over 80, if you're in that emotional space, it's so much easier for them to take you from here to here. So you need to consider the degree of choices and responses and purchases that you're doing on a daily basis. Because this first part of this presentation right here, what I really want you to do is I want you to, even if it helps to close your eyes and think about you in a range of different situations in the past, specifically the how, when, where, why, and under what circumstances do you find yourself reacting versus responding. And this is so elementary. This is so basic. And you've probably had this type of conversation, different contexts, maybe with your kids in the past, maybe with your grandkids, with your, with friends, Susie, don't you know you were just reacting? Or Tom, aren't you thinking? But really it's as basic as this, understanding how, when, where, why, and under what circumstances you've reacted versus responded. And even though we know what reaction and reactionary behavior is, here's a definition of it. I mean, it is a reaction. It is instant, knee-jerk reaction. It's done on impulse. You're not putting a lot of thought into it. It's embedded in our makeup, our human anatomy. It's how we have survived since day one. So there is a big survival component to it, but there's better ways to address most situations rather than just reacting. And so the more reacting we do, the less empowered we become. And like I said a few minutes ago, I really want you to know that you are and you can be and will again tomorrow. You need to feel empowered on the fact that you really can protect yourself and those that are dear to you. So a response, obviously, is where there's thought, some degree of reasoning. You're just taking that extra time to make a decision. take a step back, you catch your breath, you question, you research, you understand. I tell people all the time in these presentations, that if you do receive some type of solicitation, phone, text, email, whatever, and you're not sure, is this legitimate? Is it not? Something doesn't feel right. There's nothing wrong with hanging up or deleting that email. So it says it's Bank of America, and maybe you have an account with Bank of America, but it's saying there's something wrong with your account. Click here. No. Just avoid it. Delete it if you want. Go to the source. Take that extra breath, take that step back, and go to the number on the back of your debit card or your credit card, or go to their website on your own and make that inquiry. Rather than just, oh my gosh, my account's frozen, or this payment's not going through, whatever. And yes, I'm just going to click on this link. And then you're going down this rabbit hole of trouble. And it can take, you can be at a loss with information or money. And it can take a long time to get back to level ground. So just like when we're young adults starting out with crying baby, I mean, they cry, you step back and you come towards that child with reason and love and more understanding than just that knee-jerk reaction. That's not the best example, but often we just need to take that breath. So it can be the difference with responding instead of reacting. It can be the difference between falling prey to a scam and outsmarting the scammer. And it's great when we outsmart them, because we are actually better than they are. So head and heart. So now kind of getting into the pandemic. And when I say pandemic, obviously I'm talking about the health-related matters. I'm also talking about the downturn in the economy. It's been a long year. And we've had moments like this in the past. We've had other downturns financially. Health-related matters, other pandemics. And there's going to be some tomorrow too. So, and though these emotions and situations on the screen right here are common enough, we've definitely experienced, all ages, more aspects of this during the pandemic, especially when we just don't know what's going on in the beginning. There's just uncertainty and things scare us, and you hear stories and too much information, too little information. But when we're in places like this, these scammers are so much more successful, and they're much more aggressive because they're just preying on us. And we all experience some degree of this at some point, but we can still manage successfully through these behavioral internal stages and moments. Are there any questions? And Shannon, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's been quiet, so.
Yep, I can still hear you. I think everybody's muted, so if they want to ask a question, they'll have to unmute themselves and then ask.
Okay, and so if anyone has a question right now, just hit unmute and ask away. If not, I'll continue. But I am going to talk about specific scams that are taking place and fraud. So I am going to cover that. But any questions right now? Okay. So let's get with the pandemic here. So two very conditions that we have been going through during the pandemic, and to some degree we still are. And it's once again, it's all ages. Life has been very different for most of us. And there has been greater degrees of solitude and loneliness. And they are different. For what it's worth, they are different. Because you can be in solitude, whether it's you and your significant other, or just yourself, or other family member, maybe just by yourself, but you're alone, but you're not truly lonely. And I will say, I think this would have been one of the few positives that's come out of the pandemic and everything is I think a lot of people that really didn't embrace technology before kind of stepped up to the plate and started to do it just so they could stay connected, right? And informed and educated. So you can be in solitude and not be lonely. But yes, there has been a large degree of loneliness during this period. And even when things get better, someone can still experience this. But at first it actually feels isolated and really is craving more social contact. And the kids are experiencing it too. I have 5 kids and they've been virtual and life as they have always known and needed it to be has been different because they haven't been in school. So a lot of us that are older, we know that the sun will rise tomorrow. We know that we can experience some what we consider negative emotions, and sometimes it's just a process to go through them, and things will get better. But a lot of these kids don't, and so some of the emotional conditions I showed a few minutes ago have been very real across the board, and definitely with the kids. So, and I am going to start going up on a higher note here, but it's again when in those moments of isolation and things are different and we feel like we're out of touch. I mean, there are mental health concerns, and a lot of the work groups that I'm part of with Douglas County and Arapahoe and our other counterparts in the Front Range. I mean, it's all ages, but definitely with the senior population. We're experiencing these. So with isolation, there comes fear and uncertainty, and then there have been plenty of situations where these bottom 4 have surfaced. So once again, if I'm a scammer, whether I'm sitting in a call center in India or Nigeria, trying to initiate some type of romance scam, whatever, and I'm looking in whatever direction it is at the United States, and I know that a lot of the population is going through this roller coaster. I'm excited, and because there's a lot of opportunity for me to take advantage of people when they're not as strong as they have been in the past. So, but things are getting better. Spring is in the air. People are getting their vaccinations. There's light ahead, but these moments impact our judgment, how we do or don't do, and how we either react or we respond. So according to recently, the AARP, and they're one of our many groups that we work with on a large level. So during the pandemic, most adults, once again, AARP, so they have their market. So a lot of the stuff with AARP, it's like 50 plus. These are the emotions that they're finding that a lot of adults are going through. The frustration. I have been frustrated on so many things. Stressed, yes. 5 kids at home, trying to do my job, wife trying to do her job, getting the news, not getting the news, anxious, isolated, tired, being sad. 7 out of 10 adults indicated it's made it hard to connect with friends. Well, yeah. But then again, to what degree of connection? We can connect via FaceTime. We can connect to things on various types of social media. We can still call and this and that, but it's, AARP is finding that it's been really hard for a lot of folks. Among adults, the bottom line here, and I see this with the Better Business Bureau and some of their findings and talking with the AG's office, so over 50, women are more likely than men to report having felt the degree of these negative emotions. And actually, more women have been exposed or succumbed to fraud during this time. Numbers are higher than what they were before. So they're the ones that were surveyed and spoken up. It's the emotional side. So it's not surprising to understand that they've been more have been victim to whether they had a financial loss or not, to crime or to fraud. But at least but also the women are reporting the fraud more than the men are, which is great because I always stress we all need to report fraud, whether it's to us, local law enforcement, or we help you to go to this federal agency that have the greater resources to potentially help, especially if it's something larger. So also during this time, I have this down as abuse of trust. Since we have been more isolated, there has actually been more non-stranger exploitation taking place online and offline during this time period. Once again, on from the other side, there's a lot of opportunity to mix the pot. So a number of victims mentioned in the survey, abusive relationship, the known adult, family members, partners, caretakers. Over 15% of victims in a recent survey were to being in that abusive relationship. And it can be hard to report, whether it's whether it's domestic abuse or child abuse, whatever. People have been quiet. The numbers are beginning to show differently because now people are getting out and they're not as afraid to report. Kids go back to school. Teachers will be the better eyes and ears of what potentially happened. And so there's a lot of situations also where maybe it's not where the situation at hand is just someone that's known has accessed their bank accounts or their social or Medicare or something like that, and taken advantage of it. The whole nother segment, but child ID theft, and it's been growing over the last few years. Child ID theft, about 40% of kids by the time they've turned 18 already have a credit file. And that's because someone known in the family or through data breaches has accessed their social security number. And when no one was looking at their social security number when they were like age 8, 9, 10, someone's grabbed it and they're opening up financial accounts in the kid's name, but all the bills are going to a different location and what have you. Kid turns 18, time to get to school, needs to get a credit card, maybe a car loan, and oh my gosh, I've got horrible credit because all these accounts have been opened up. So abuse of trust, and then sometimes it's just, you're not knowing at all, but there's someone that is a non-stranger that's taking advantage. So senior populations and fraud, people age 60 and over more likely, and I'm finding this with AARP, I'm finding it with the Better Business Bureau, a little bit with CBI reports, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, are more likely to fall victim to fraud. And during this time have experienced, higher degrees of loneliness. It has been known, what has been the trend is actually the younger population experiences more fraud, but the senior population loses more money. It's more discretionary income. So the senior population has lost more. But actually, as of this past year, the numbers are about equal with the youth population and the senior population. The median income loss has been about equal to that amount. There's also risk of losing their, so a lot of folks 65 plus, the numbers just show they're less likely to report fraud. They could be embarrassment. They could be reliant on a family member that they're living with or whatever. And so there's fear of retaliation. They're no longer the breadwinner, someone else is, what have you. So it's more of a challenge. It's more, so you see at the bottom, fear, embarrassment, financial dependency to report fraud. So, but connecting, so we've tried to connect in new ways and more often, during this downtime, new friendships, dating sites, seeking romance. Just as a general rule, as more of us have been online, while some people are nice, other people are being nice just because they're trying to get something from you. It's just part of our nature. There's folks like that. And so whether it's someone you actually do know on the other line or someone that's pretending to be something else, when you start, if that's the case and you start getting overabundance of supportive and flattering messages, they're actually the root cause there or reason is they're trying to manipulate. And so that can be a big red flag, especially if it's a potential new relationship online, even if it's just like a pen pal type thing and nothing on the romance side. That's a big red flag. More and more, like I said, you may not really know who you're talking to. A lot of the kids on the social media have a lot of followers and fans, and they assume it's another kid that's following them. But there's a lot of situations where it's an adult in a different country pretending to be a kid and trying to extract bits of information from them. And it's not great. So we need to connect, but we need to look out for the flags right there. And what happens lots of times, definitely even in the 65 plus, as you meet somebody online, some sort, one way or another, and once they convince you to go offline, you go from public to the private space and you're kind of on your own. And so that's when things can actually start to take an even more concerning route. And you definitely, it's best, we're human and and our emotions can get the best of us, but it really can be a bad situation where if you agree to meet in person. So if you don't know how to do it, there's plenty of information out there, but it is good to turn off location sharing on your phone or whatever device that you have. So, because like you take pictures with your phone and you can send it, and there's things on there that the person that receives that picture, even if it's just online, can see where the picture was taken. So you can disable that on your device. So I just said some kind of scary things in relation to connecting, but through the pandemic and the newsletters that I put out and all the different organizations and agencies in the area, working with young and older, connection is still the best way to live. And, it's the best predictor of human resilience really is connection. And that knowing you have the support of others, it helps to nurture a more positive attitude and different perspectives and what have you. Physical distancing, which we've had to do, does not mean social distancing. So it's really, once again, it's just having that greater awareness. And as we're involved in relationships, old and new, online and offline, that is that emotional realm which we're beautiful at, and we're a beautiful species. And we run the whole gamut of types of emotions and stuff, but it's just having that awareness, situational awareness of what's going on, whether it's a new type of relationship or it's the solicitation coming in out of nowhere, asking you to do something. So according to AARP, this came out just recently. I sat through something the other day that they put on. Some of you may have as well. But so these are just characteristics that make us more vulnerable to fraud. And it seems to be more true for the older population. It can be true for the kids too, but it's different. But as you respect authority, so a lot of the older senior population, there's this respect for authority. You're a rule follower. You've had experience with different federal agencies throughout your life, either with the IRS or Small Business Administration, Social Security Administration, or whatever. You're just less likely to question. And so therefore you get a solicitation, phone, email, text, and it's the IRS saying you still owe back taxes and you need to act on this now, or you're going to be hit with a fine, or a Social Security Administration that says your benefits are frozen. Do this, do that, make a payment. Individuals that don't question. And once again, you can hang up. you're not going to get in trouble if you get one of these and it really is legit. If you hang up and then call back or go to the source and inquire on your own. First and foremost, the IRS never calls you. They don't. They reach you through U.S. Postal. They don't email. They don't text. Those are the Social Security, same thing. Most of the government agencies do that. None of these are going to call up, including local law enforcement, like your local Castle Rock PD, and threaten you, force you to pay something over the phone, ask for your Social Security number, ask for your driver's license. They don't do that. But a lot of people are getting these calls, and it's someone of authority. So you're vulnerable. So you like to please people. This is another weak area right here. We've, especially last year, we had several situations where someone in the community, and there was a minister for a very large church in your community that supposedly, and it wasn't true, that wasn't him, sent something out to several members of the congregation. Like, I'm busy, I'm in a conference, I normally don't do this, but our congregation is suffering. The pandemic is crippling us, and we just need to help our fellow person out. And I just need you to go out and get these gift cards so we can get it to these people and they can use it for groceries or whatever. But again, I'm busy. If you can just go do this, typically in large amounts and multiple cards, and just take a picture of it and send it to me, and the church will pay you back, and blah blah blah. Our previous DA had that happen, was supposedly with a priest in the Douglas County area, and it wasn't true. But you want to help and you want to please, and you get these solicitations, and people are acting on them. People that are cocky and overconfident, like, I could never be scammed, I'm too good for that, usually are the ones that get scammed more often. It's just the data. The data is there. Folks that have been scammed before typically are more likely to get scammed again. I will give you a little tip. I've had several people, even in my neighborhood, who have said, I get all these, they know what I do, and I get all these calls and solicitations, and it's every day. And one day, the other day, I had it. I was going to tell. I knew this was a criminal, it was a scammer, and I just knew it. I just wanted them to know how I feel, and I busted in. So I answered the phone, and I just laid into them, and I said, well, I'm sure that felt great. But that was a criminal, and the fact that you actually called them back and talked, because this is a very broad, organized criminal community globally. What happens is, once you do that, you're more likely to get more calls and more solicitations because you're someone that was going to take the time to answer the phone or click on an email. So once again, overly confident, but what you've done is you've just put yourself in a whole new category. You're overly friendly, under stress. I've covered a whole gamut of emotions there. You're vulnerable, and you're lonely. So this is what they said the other day. This rolling out of 2020. So one of the biggest areas for the AARP nationally, and it holds true in the district. So the data that I have. Government imposter solicitations. And so in that government imposter, I'm putting federal, state, I'm putting local law enforcement, I'm even putting utility companies in there. I was interviewed by 7 News the other day, and they interviewed Aurora PD. A lot of people were getting calls from Xcel Energy with the cold weather, and they were getting calls saying, we're getting ready to, you owe 600, it was big amounts, and we're going to shut your power off for failure to pay. And they're very authoritative, and they're very demanding. This is going to happen. You have to pay now. So they're getting people to try to make payments with gift cards. Well, this one particular woman, she was a single mother, young kids, cold weather, didn't want her groceries to be ruined in the fridge. So she actually went out and bought multiple gift cards, about a little over $2,500 worth, and read the numbers off, thinking she was paying Excel, and it was just imposters. So that government imposter is a big one, but it's that broader range of entities that I just mentioned. And then same thing on business solicitations. Phishing is a big deal. I talked about that. Sweepstake, prize, lottery winnings. It's a lot of these fake lottery calls are happening. A lot happened on the real estate space, and you can see the others here. But that non-stranger, I covered that, and that's a big one. Kind of came from the BBB, but so just to give you an idea, and all ages experience all of these things, but the numbers, the data is a little bit higher as you see it here in these certain areas. A lot of the younger population, really through social media, getting hit with folks coming in and convincing them to open up their accounts, which they may have with their parent, to allow checks to run through, and they'll get a little cut of it. So the checks will go in, and before it fully clears, they have the money taken out, then the check comes and bounces. And it's an old scam. But a lot of the younger population getting hit with that. Employment on the senior side, right here, investment, romance, and tech support. So as more people have become involved with tech and wanting to be connected and educated or whatever, they hear presentations like this and like, well, I need to get up to speed. And so they'll suddenly out of nowhere, there's a solicitation from ABC tech company, like, we can help you get all this stuff set up. And all we have to do is you just online, they're not with you, give us access to your device and we'll set all the controls up and this and that. And they're fraudulent groups and they're stealing your information. A lot of people are getting solicitations from Microsoft saying your device is frozen and we can help you fix it. You obviously have a PC, and they're just really, most of these are groups out of India, and they're getting them to pay, and they're just stripping the information off their devices, personal and financial. So with the BBB, they just pushed out a new report a couple of days ago, but those that are more susceptible to fraud here, it's gotten higher. So certainly with COVID and the pandemic, so it's the percentage of consumers that lost money when they were exposed to a scam. It climbed from, you can see there, 35.1%, because they do different types of data. There's the actual amount of money that's lost and a few other things, but those that have been more successful. So that number is up. It's a 33% rise over last year, but since 2017, it's been a huge jump. The amount of dollars lost is a little bit lower, but more people have actually been experienced to fraud. A big area has been online purchases. That's kind of been top of the list with FTC and the Federal Trade Commission and some of the other groups. They all can differ just a little bit, but different groups are getting different types of complaints from different parts of the population. But they're more alike than they're not. And most of these scams are old scams anyway, but there's a big COVID umbrella across it. But online purchase scams where people have paid and nothing's come have been really, really high. Puppy adoption and kitten adoption is one of those areas. People think they're on a legitimate site and talking to a breeder, and they spend all this money and then the pet never comes. But this little figure right here I mentioned earlier. For the first time, it's the younger population and the senior population. It's about equal, and the median loss is about $150. I mean, there's some that have been substantial, but it's about equal. That's different. So, okay. So now that the vaccines are coming out, there's even more room for types of fraud. Even before they came out, we've had groups up in the Aurora area and other places where the AG's office had to step in, where we had groups before the manufacturers produced the vaccines. They already, especially in the Hispanic population, there were certain restaurants that said they had vaccines. They were marketing to that population, and people were coming in to get vaccines, one of which was nothing more than eucalyptus water. So potentially, none of what they were doing was helping to the cure or prevention of COVID. So there's a lot of this going around. You need to stay the course. Don't be fooled into paying to get these solicitations. Like we can, and a lot of you may have already had your vaccinations. I know Douglas County is a little further ahead than other groups, but people being told if they pay whatever, skip the line, they can reserve an appointment. They can be in a better position than their fellow man if they pay something. And so that's a red flag, and that's not the case. Vaccine for sale scams. You shouldn't have to pay to receive the vaccine. Sometimes there's a small, almost like could be like a little copay kind of thing. Not very common, but those are reimbursable. But you're not paying to get your vaccinations. With the contact tracing, they should not be asking you for these things that you see right here: your social security number, bank account, credit card information. These are fraudulent groups. Once again, you're eager to get the vaccination, and then you want to start to live a better life again and be confident and what have you. And so these fake groups have been calling a lot of the population across the country, and they're asking these questions. So you should never really have to get whatever entities coming into you. You should never really be being asked and give out this crucial type of information. A lot of people are so happy and proud that and relieved that they've had their vaccination, that they're showing pictures of their vaccination card on social media. Any kind of person pretty much can get on social media and spearfish you, so to speak, and they can pull it from, depending on the clarity of the picture, they can pull information off there. Once again, there's plenty of people out there that are building a file on you so that they can take it a further and deeper advantage of you down the road. Not really shipping vaccines, to you. You shouldn't, if you get these that we have it for you, just pay this fee, we'll ship it. Well, they're not, and you're not going to be giving the vaccine to yourself. You need to go to these approved locations that I think at this point all of us kind of know at least the type of locations, organizations that are doing the vaccinations. These at-home test kit scams, there's plenty of that. Solicitations, there's been a lot of folks that have been convinced that they have to take all these pre-tests in order to get the vaccine. No, if anything, it would be something with the doctor that you've always gone to. There was a pre-existing condition, but that's really not the case either. So people are just being bombarded around the vaccines, and all these different angles are being experienced. So I'm going to go on. So I've covered some behavioral and emotional, and it goes just a little bit further. And I'm going to talk about some of the other big scams that are happening. Does anybody have a question right now on anything that I've covered? Okay. All right. Well, I will continue. I like questions. I do.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
I got a fraudulent 1099-G.
Okay, I'm going to cover that in just a minute. That's a big
you
one.
Are? Okay.
I am. Yep. And actually, Shannon indicated a few people that, in your community right there, maybe even on this call, have received something of that sort. So I am going to cover that.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So, okay. So anyway, these are some other things that we're seeing. These are things that were before COVID, they're during COVID, and they'll be after COVID. But a lot of these they fall under, that's, the genre right now is the economy and the pandemic. So a lot of these things, there's COVID woven throughout, or maybe not so much on the contractor, that other than excuses on why they haven't shown up yet with your material that you've paid for. So this is a big one right now. I mean, it's out of control. It's not just our state, but we have been hit really, really hard with the unemployment benefit claims. And I mean, we've lost a lot of money, and it's really just kind of frozen. The system right now is to where those that really are now unemployed and really do need the benefits, there's been a delay in their requests being processed, and payments going out. And so extreme hardships when they're out of work and can't pay their rent or utilities or medical bills or whatever. So what is happening now is not that different than what happened this past summer when the stimulus checks and there were a lot of debit cards that went out. That was at a federal level. There was a lot of activity where people were getting multiple cards to their address but had different names on the cards. And it wasn't their doing. It was because of, so then in the summer, which was more federal based and now more state based, these are because of data breaches. This is because there's been an exuberant amount of breaches over the years. They've always happened. They're still happening. As good as companies and organizations are at trying to prevent breaches from happening, they happen. And Equifax, that was a big breach a few years ago. A lot of information got out there. So these organized crime groups are grabbing this information that may have been your information that may have been sitting dormant for a long time, and they're filing this. So people, so what happens is so the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment thinks they're doing the right thing. They've got a request to pay on unemployment, and then the bank that Colorado is using, and some other states are too, and there's other banks, has been U.S. Bank. So folks are incorrectly getting, yes, a 1099 or a U.S. Bank debit card and or PIN. And a lot of employers are getting notification that employees that they think are working are filing for unemployment. So they're calling them up and or walking down the hall or whatever. And did you quit? No, I did not quit. Well, it says you're unemployed. So a lot of people are getting these. I think it's now like over 60,000 cases in Colorado. We have people in the DA's office, same thing, have received these cards. So if you don't know, there's really nothing that our office is going to be able to step in to do, and local police departments really are not going to be able to do much either, because a lot of this is coming from overseas. But you do need to, and I can provide it later, if you haven't, you need to contact the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, so CDLE, and let them know that you did not request this. If you did receive something from U.S. Bank, you need to let them know. Right now, you're kind of having to go online to do this because they can't take the calls. You need to let them know. You got a 1099. By letting especially CDLE know, then they can let on the IRS side, but you may also want to let your tax accountant, if you have one, know. You should also report it to the Federal Trade Commission, which doesn't take long. It takes a few minutes, but its website is ftc.gov. So Frank, Tom, Charlie.gov, G-O-V, and file it. And so that's the easy part, because once again, this is a result of a data breach. And what's actually happening, this is a case of ID theft. And ID theft is a serious matter, and and nothing more may happen, but things can happen, and it drags on. If you have ever experienced ID theft before, because some of your information is out there. These groups buy and sell people's information all the time, and these breaches are like thousands and thousands of files per company when they're breached. So if you've already taken, and I'll answer your questions on this in just a second, but if you've already done this, the other steps you need to take is you need to notify the credit bureaus and let them know this has happened and this is not correct. So they put a mark on your files. You should see if there's any other funny activity going on, accounts that you don't know of that are open, and hopefully there's not. But we should be doing this and at least once a year anyway, checking our credit reports. So you need to let them know. You may need to freeze your credit file so nothing else can happen. I would certainly suggest, which we should be doing weekly, monthly, whatever, is making sure our financial accounts are where they should be and there's no funny transactions. And you just kind of need to monitor and make sure that nothing else that you did not initiate is taking place on in those areas. So it's ID theft, but ID theft is much larger than what people think. There's a much larger percentage of the population that's experiencing it than you probably imagine, but it's very real. So that's why unless you really did file for unemployment, that's why you've gotten something. And what they're trying to do, it ranges. I mean, some of this is local, most of it's international. They're trying to get the PIN numbers off the cards or some type of information off these payments that are going out. They've picked locations where it's like a second home for someone and stuff is being sent to the mailbox and they're breaking in the mailboxes. It's a little bit of everything, but it's crime. It's organized crime. It's fraud. It's a case of data breaches. So if I didn't cover what your question is, happy to talk about it because I think there are a few people that have experienced this or know someone that has.
Question? Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I did not get a fake debit card. I just got the 1099-G in the mail.
Okay.
I immediately did the first step. I went to the CDLE Colorado.gov fraud prevention and reported it.
Good.
On the 1st of February. And I told my tax accountant about it. And about 20 days later, I got a letter from the Labor Department saying the same thing, that they think there's been fraud and to please go back and report it. And so I reported it again. So how many times does one have to report it before it sticks?
Yeah. Well, like I said, they are overwhelmed. I mean, it's the number. California is about as crazy as we are in the numbers. So as for a reason why you had to do it again, probably just that is they're just overwhelmed. Like I said, the whole thing's been kind of frozen, and those that really should be getting payments or they're having to wait, they're having to sort through. And this all started to kick in right after Christmas, like the week between Christmas and New Year's, and it's just been going on. Like I said, I was telling Shannon earlier, I just even this week, I've gotten a couple folks that have called in, and most of them have already done what you've done, like only ones, or they've talked to their tax accountant or maybe an attorney or whatever, and taking the right steps, and they've just kind of called in to see if there's anything else. And I kind of covered the other things, but
what I haven't done, what I didn't do is file a police report. Does one still have to do that?
You can't. Go ahead.
I did put a fraud alert on all my Consumer Credit Bureau accounts, but I did not file a police report. How important is that?
You can. I mean, it's a statement of innocence. It kind of puts it in the system. There's really nothing that they're going to be able to do. Local PD or sheriffs. It's really more at that state level and also kind of federal because you got a 1099, right? And so they're thinking you got extra money for your for your tax return at the federal level and the state level. So you can. I probably more so just file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, .gov, their website.
That's the one step I haven't taken. So.
Probably more that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And like I said, I'm going to get all of you. I'm going to give you my number here at the end. And call me. If it's a 2-minute question or just want to talk through it. my door is open. So we can talk about these things, okay? And if I need to refer, if it's something we can handle, if I need to refer you to some resources, I'll do that. So I'm not going to get into this. I showed this one on the previous presentation, but once again, it's this government imposter fraud. Really the bigger thing, and this is on our website. I put all our fraud alerts, the consumer fraud protection part of our site, but just this stat right here, this figure is, as of last year, July, 44% of Americans have encountered some type of government imposter scam, email, phone, text. And I kind of covered, it kind of goes beyond just the government. And because I told you, it's utility companies too. And it could be, there's just all kinds of imposters. It's the imposter fraud. I've talked about gift cards. This is a big deal. We just tell you this, plain and simple, tell everybody, tell your family members, just gift cards are for gifts. They're not for payments. And more of these imposters are calling in or trying to get people to purchase these cards to make a payment, whether it's back taxes or to pay a fee to open up unfreeze your Social Security account. People are getting calls. Numbers are spoofed from Arapahoe County Sheriff's, from Castle Rock Police Department, where they're actually saying there's someone that actually works there. They're calling, but they're putting the Castle Rock PD number on there. So if you call back, it's Castle Rock, but you owe money to the police department. You owe a fine, and we're going to arrest you today if you don't pay. The sheer number of people that are believing this is so out of control. Just in January, and it's about to happen again in a week or two. So we partnered with all the local law enforcement in Douglas County, to the sheriff's office, Parker, Castle Rock, Lone Tree. We're getting ready to do. I've rounded up everybody in Arapahoe County. We're partnering with Albertson Safeways, which is the same company. And the Colorado Retailers Association, and we're trying to bring in the other big players, big retailers that sell gift cards. So we had a big media event, but if you go into a Safeway now, you'll see at the card stand, you'll see the sign right here, gift cards, not for payments, and you'll see all our different badges on there. And there's other signage that actually ask a couple questions, like, are you being, it's basically saying, are you being forced to buy this to make a payment? Employees are now being trained, or have been trained, at Safeway, Albertsons, and like I said, we're trying to get King Soopers and CVS and all them. They're definitely trained with Albertsons, Safeways. If someone goes and is checking out at the counter and they're purchasing multiple gift cards, and definitely for a certain amount, the employees are trained to ask you if you're being forced to do this. You may be involved in an act of crime. And so there's an opportunity right there to second guess, to catch your breath, because it's that common. Safeway stopped someone the other day from buying about $6,000 in gift cards. The person I mentioned for Excel, it was about $2,500. She lost it. So gift cards are nothing more than cash. But what a lot of these criminals are doing, you think it's law enforcement or some government official, and they're very good. They've got you scared, and you appreciate authority. They'll keep you on the phone as soon as you purchase the card. You read off the numbers, and then they hang up, and that money's gone. You cannot recoup that. You can't. It's just gone. So they convinced you to pay them, and so the employees are questioning folks. Piece of paper, depending if you're Lone Tree or Castle Rock, if you believe you're a victim here, here's the number for Castle Rock PD, call. Here you would file a police report. But a lot of this is international, but some of it are local folks going after. So innocent people like you and I. I know 2 officers at Littleton PD. They've gotten these calls, that you need to make a payment, and they kind of have fun with it. But it's happening. So Arapahoe's about to do it, and we'll have a big launch at another Safeway. And then, and what we're trying to do, I've talked to the folks at AARP who works with the AG's office. We're looking to do just a big launch on this for the metro area in like May, late April or May or so. But it's one of the top 4 priorities for AARP to give added attention to how much of this is happening, because people are losing so much money. Some people are so convinced that they have to do this. They're being stopped in the stores and they're being told, you're being forced to do this. These are criminals. It's not legit. And they'll go next door to another retailer and they'll purchase cards and they're not asked by the employee, and they lose all this money. I mean, you'll say this would never happen to me, but it's happening all the time, even with the younger population. It's a big deal, big deal. Other big one, Amazon. It's still a reality. It was really big over the holiday season. So the scammers are hiding behind big brand names. So we've talked about imposters with government and utility and law enforcement. Now they're hiding behind big brands, and Amazon is massive. And because of the pandemic, more and more of us are ordering stuff online using Amazon. So all these people, and I get it. I had one yesterday, but it was a text from Amazon, customer support, or Amazon security saying there's been a breach and your account has been compromised. There are fraudulent charges. We need to talk to you. We can't deliver your package because there's a hiccup somewhere, basically, and you need to call us and we need to figure this out. Lost package, order confirmation, or your account's locked. And depending on where you are emotionally, or just being naive or too busy or stressed or whatever, and how good they are on the other side, some of these are getting solicitations and you're clicking on a link to go over and talk to somebody, or you're answering that call and talking. They're convincing people to let them into their laptop so they can fix the account. That if there's a problem with their account being frozen, let's just help me get in there and I'll fix it and we'll be on our way. So they're convincing them to do that. And then some people are being told they have to pay a fee to get their package. And therefore, typically what's happening is folks are going further down the rabbit hole and buying gift cards. So once again, if you have an account or you think maybe you do have something coming, then hang up. Don't click on the links. Go to the Amazon site. There's several pages that talks about how much fraud is going on here. And call and see, is there something really wrong with my account? But don't ever go with the number that's given to you. Don't ever go with the link that's presented to you. You need to be in control. But this is a really big one right here.
I'd like to ask you, or I'd like to share something.
Yeah.
My company, when I was working, used to periodically send us fake messages, and just to kind of test us to see what we did. And then we had a place to send a message if we thought it was a phishing expedition or if it was fraudulent. And then they'd send you a little message back and said, yeah, you passed. You didn't let that get by you. But what I was thinking is that it would be nice if, as a consumer, we had a place in your office to send some of these fake messages we get, because it would sort of keep you guys on top of what the latest things is happening, and just an idea to share.
Well, and I do get a lot of those. A lot of these, especially these broader phishing ones, it's international based, and there's not much that we can do. A lot of these are more internet web based. And so what I do have folks do, if they're willing to, and it doesn't take long, is I have them go to, just like this, and some of these big extortion Bitcoin solicitations that were coming across last spring, and the spelling was horrible. I mean, you knew it was international, right? You could tell. As I direct people to either go to the ftc.gov site and report it, or go to the FBI site, which is ic3.gov. So I as in ice cream, C as in Charlie, the number 3.gov. That's their internet crime center. And the reason I say that is because they have the greater resources and the bigger database. If you have that number or that email and you provide it to them, there's a very good chance somewhere else in the country, like hundreds of times, they've seen something come from that number or that email address. So they have a bigger database to figure out those patterns and sources, and therefore potentially block it, suppress it, make it go away, more than what local law enforcement would do. Now, there's times where clearly, and it's something that's probably local. There's someone here known or not known to you that's local, and that's where we really can be more effective. You can reach out, but if you're like me, I probably on a weekly basis, I'm getting, I don't know, a dozen via text, email, or a phone call. And it's just, the number is just huge. So, and so you can't really, you can report every single time. You can come to our group or PD, but more so the other two federal. But to do it each time, I mean, it is time consuming. Just know that that's just kind of the world that we're living in right now. There's been that high degree of our information that's gotten out there. If you're, so my door's always open. You can do that, but these are broader, bigger, web-based nets that are being thrown and trying to see how many people they can, catch. But if you ever want to go and see how many times your email may have been breached, mine's been breached. When I checked it about 8 times, I've been breached about 8 times, my email. It's called Have I Been Pwned? So have, H-A-V-E, I, been, B-E-N, pwned, like a pawn shop, but there's no A in pond. It's just PWNED.com. Have I been pwned? And you put in your email and it'll tell you how many times your email has been breached. And, mine, I see there's a question, but let me just say this. So when I checked mine, it'll tell you what type of information was lost. It doesn't mean you have to change your email. You just have to be better about password protection, all that. But LinkedIn is a very well-known software program that just about anybody in the professional space uses this. It's very legit. It serves a lot of value and purpose. It was hacked in 2016. I've had software that my kids' schools use for even before COVID, for a lot of their online classes. I've had fitness apps, some design apps that I use. But it'll just tell you if your email's been compromised before, because sometimes that's the only bit of information that's circulating out there is just your email, and that's where you're getting so much junk. But other times there's been a substantial breach, and there may be more of your information that's out there. So it looked like another question popped up. Okay. So I'm just about done. So there's all kinds of tips, but there's some very simple tips to consider with all these things that are coming in, COVID or non-COVID. But just seriously, just ignore unsolicited emails that seek immediate action. That's one of the big flags, is if you've got to do something now, and if you wait, there's just harsh consequences for you. Just refuse to provide any sensitive information. Just delete these emails that appear. You can report them, like I said, these broader ones to those two sites. But just, these people are trying to manipulate you, and they do. So it's okay to hang up. It's okay to say no. It's okay to be skeptical. That's just where we are these days. You definitely need to slow down, take time to read emails, make sure that lots of times they'll slide a 0 instead of an O in an address. And if you're not looking, then it looks to be legitimate, but there's a big difference in an O and a 0. It's a whole different email or website. Like I said, recognize manipulation. Research the companies, the organizations. Like I said, these government entities aren't going to call you up and all that and impress you. Don't let the link be in control of where you land, and take a more responsive approach versus reactionary. Just understand online manipulation. Like I said, block. A friend can become an ex-friend. It just happens. So be careful on what you give over. Think about what you post. stuff stays on there forever. And a lot of people will come onto your social media and just see what they can see in the background pictures or what have you, diplomas, number of kids, stuff like that. People in relationships change. They sure do. Don't let friends or strangers pressure you to be someone that you're not, or to do something that you wouldn't normally do. So here's my information. The door's open, and so call me. These both come directly to me. The hotline, email, and phone number, they come directly to me. So here anytime. I mean, you have lots of friends in law enforcement there in Castle Rock and also in our office. I definitely want to be someone that you can trust, and then that you have a friend, at the DA's office. So
I have one more question.
sure.
When I look at an email and I'm not, sure why I'm getting it, like I've gotten some from Amazon saying my account's compromised. If I look at the address that it came from, a lot of times it's some sort of nonsensical thing like numbers and
Right.
letters that don't mean anything. Is that a good way to sort of recognize if it's legitimate?
So it is, and this is something I have a whole other presentation where I can go in deeper, but sadly you have to look at the detail. So obviously, to tell if it's first and foremost, it's to tell if it's a secure website, make sure it has HTTPS, it will always have that HTTPS, and make sure there's a lock, like a key lock, that's closed. Those mean secure sites. When you start to see email addresses that make no sense, if the titles of the emails, the grammar is just way off. I mean, we type pretty quickly, and the kids these days stink, and their spelling, the grammar. But I mean, it'll stand out. But if you hover over an email address, then you'll get a pop-up. And there's a little envelope you can click on, and it'll tell you what the true sending email address is. And sometimes it's different than what you initially saw. So you just hover over it, you get a pop-up, click on that envelope, and then it'll show you the actual email address. Another way, instead of just replying, like we reply all the time, we assume we're going back to the true sender. If you look at it, write down whatever that is, and hit forward. And then if you know where it really should go, then you can put the correct, email address in there. But a lowercase r next to a lowercase n. So Roger, Nancy. If you're in a hurry, it looks like the letter M is in Mary. You start to see international email addresses coming in that'll be like whatever, but .ru, Russia, or .au. Question those. And then also just remember that more and more certain phone numbers are being spoofed, where it's coming wherever in the country or internationally, and so that's the origin. But what's showing is something that may be in your contact list, or it may show, Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office or whatever. Just know that spoofing does happen, and it happens, enough. If you don't know the number, don't answer. Let it go to voicemail. It's important to leave a voicemail, and then even if you do get a voicemail, you should pretty quickly be able to determine if you have to call back or not. If they're threatening you and it's an urgency, or the recording's already started and there's a warrant out for your arrest, or we've been around long enough. I mean, you should pick up enough to know that this is something that you don't need to move on, or someone to call back. And hopefully you have attended presentations like this or read other things that you can be suspicious enough to take that extra breath and do the research and just take those extra steps, depending on what it is. So, you have more power than you know. You do. So any other questions? Okay. Well, hopefully I can visit you again in person or with other presentations. There are other topics we can talk about. Sometimes I'll be putting together other presentations with other aspects of our DA's office. If you've never attended a Citizens Academy before, we will be having a Citizens Academy for our office. I think Castle Rock PD does too, but we do different things. That's coming up in the spring, probably virtual. So if you'd like to learn more about all the different things your DA's office does, I push out a newsletter, which if you'd like to join it, you just let me know via this email address and I'll add you. It's just constant contact, but a lot of fraud alerts go out in that. Announcements on events like the Citizens Academy or Senior Law Day. So love to have you for CA if you want, and love to take your calls and hear what you have to say. So
Thank you so much for being with us, Jamie. We really appreciate the information.
yeah. Well, have a wonderful week. Enjoy the sun today. Stay dry tomorrow, and then enjoy the spring weather this weekend.
You too. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.